What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 33 of the Backpick Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Thomas. Today's guest is Todd Coburn, commonly known as the Catching Guy. You've probably seen him on Instagram, Twitter, all over social media. He goes all over the country doing camps and clinics for youth catchers. Great conversation back and forth, really diving more into the issues and things we're dealing with youth catchers. I think a great perspective for those out there that are focusing on a younger generation of catcher. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. The Backpick Podcast and the Catching Academy are happy to be partnered with All Star Sports, who we think does the best job of taking care of catchers. You can go to their website and use our code CatchingAcademy10 and get 10% off anything site-wide. So now you are the Catching Guy, but tell us who you were previously. Talk a little bit about, your career, your playing career, and then what got you to this point.
Sure. Played at, went to junior college out of high school. I know I could get drafted sooner. had a little talent, had some looks and stuff out of high school, got drafted. Thought, okay, I want to go into pro ball. So I went the JUCO route. Did get drafted, not near high enough that I thought I would have. So I decided to continue on to go through more school. Ended up at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Their Division II program back when I was there in the early and mid 90s. They're D1 now, but we were one of the best D2 schools in the country. We actually almost won national championship back in 93. We lost to Tampa, Florida. Then after playing Cal Poly, I signed with the Phillies organization. I had a brief professional career with the Phillies. I was the $1 million arm, but 10-cent head kind of guy. Couldn't handle all the failures that come along with the game, and became a coach at 24 years old. I coached at the junior college level, high school level, junior college level. Actually coached at Cal Poly while I was getting my master's degree. And then about 25 years ago, I got into working with kids, doing lessons, camps, clinics, doing coaches clinics, speaking at conventions. And then, as you said, the last 8 years, I became known as a catching guy. When I was traveling around the country doing all these all-around skills camps, there was just never enough time dedicated to the catchers. So I decided to just focus on my passion. I was always a catcher my entire career, and the rest is history. I've been to 40 states in Canada in the last 8 years working with catchers.
Pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
It's crazy because, you and I kind of started around the same time. We started in 2014. And really, there was no catching instruction. I mean, even if you went just like on social media and, everything like that, there really wasn't a lot going on. And now it is like everywhere. It's like incredible how much it's grown in the last 10 years.
100%. I'd say there was probably maybe 6 or 7 like catching pages on social media. You said 14. I started in 16. And then now I don't even know. They seem like they're popping up daily, and there's easily over 100. I think everyone realized, oh, they're onto something here. I went from 0 followers to 10,000 in like the first month. That was on Instagram alone. I think now I'm up to about 250,000 on all the different platforms. But it's pretty crazy how it's growing. And I love it. I love, the more help with the catchers, the better. I think it's a great thing. So.
Yeah, just more awareness to the position, like you just said, and like it's always been, it's been neglected. And that was the same thing when I started. Was like, I'm coaching in college, and these guys are coming to us like with zero. I mean, it just seemed like they had zero coaching whatsoever. And it's cool because similar in that we just kind of both went back to the grassroots and tried to help. And it's great to see how it's expanded. So, talk a little bit about. It's interesting because I work with guys on a regular basis. Like for me, that's like, how I like to progress through and build relationships. It's obviously more difficult for you because you have a much larger reach. Talk about just that format of going, you got a small group of catchers and trying to get them as much as you can in such a short period of time.
Sure. So when I first started doing these catcher-only camps, I think I did 2.5-hour sessions, just because they're pretty involved. Kids are doing a lot of stuff, especially on blocking drill day and blocking time. and I didn't want to wear them out. And trying to cram all the information that I needed to get to them in 2.5 hours just wasn't cutting it. So now we're up to, for my regular, what I call big three camps, we focus on receiving, blocking, and throwing. We do 2 4.5 hour sessions. And even then, I'm usually over on time. I always warn the parents, yeah, I'm probably going to go over. So don't schedule your flight too close to camp, because I'm going to need about a 15, 20-minute cushion sometimes to get through all the information. But it's, we cram as much into it as we possibly can. I actually provide the kids notebooks to take notes, just because there is so much information to help them retain it. And again, it's still not enough time. I'll do my super camps. We do over 4 days. We do 20 hours instruction, so it's 5 hours each day. And like I said about the weekend camps, even then, when I have two extra days and that many more extra hours, it's more than double the time. They're still, the kids we got them cranking, like literally almost every minute on the minute, they're doing something new. So it's fun. It's challenging. But I think the kids get a ton out of it, and I have a blast doing it. So.
Talk a little bit about how it's changed in the last 8 years, because I think, the reality is this position's probably changed more than, maybe any position in sports in the last 8 years. So talk about how you've had to kind of change and evolve with all the different changes. Obviously, one knee stands coming into play and things of that nature.
Yeah, so kind of a funny story to that point. I was asked, Zan asked me to speak at KetcherCon back in 2016 when I just started. In 2000, I bet, well, maybe around the time you started, 14, 15, that's when more catchers started getting on a knee. Actually, when did Tanner Swanson was kind of the catalyst of the whole thing? It was right around the time we
It was
started, right?
like, I want to say like 2018 was the year that Garver caught
Okay.
every single pitch knee down. So I know that it had started a couple of years prior to that, but I think that was kind of the first year of wow, this guy's really just not going to go to 2 feet at any
Yeah.
point today.
Yeah, when people really started noticing. But my point was, so I got asked to speak, and he asked me to speak on receiving. Um, and my presentation had slide after slide of catchers sticking the ball, catchers on 2 feet, all the stuff that I was taught and did back when I played. And then I was actually roomed with Ryan Cienko, and he was showing me in our hotel room on his computer video after video of catchers on a knee, catchers moving the ball. So this was the night before I was supposed to speak. I was one of the first speakers in the morning sessions. So that night, I don't know what time I finally went to sleep, but I was in there, delete, 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 add this, change the terminology, because I didn't want to go up and look like a fool teaching all this old school stuff when I didn't even realize that that transition had really started. So Ryan kind of really opened my eyes to that, and I made some changes. I even made some extra changes that morning just prior to my presentation, and it ended up going off just fine, going great. But yeah, I was when I first started this, I was teaching, stay on your feet, minimal movement, minimal, pre and post catch move, give a nice big target, all that stuff that we, back in our day. But it's over the years, as you know, attending KetcherCon, ABCA, meeting and talking to so many great coaches out there. All the changes that we're seeing are for the better. I mean, it's, the Kneedown is helping guys, conserve energy and give the umpire a better look, and, taking away low strike reference point, helping us especially get to those low pitches. It's getting more strikes by moving the ball. And it's the position, the game is evolving, and the position for sure, like you said, is evolving, and it's been fun to be part of. I was a little resistant to moving the ball at first. The knee down made sense because I don't know, you probably did too. We'd get on a knee, if it was a second
Mm-hmm.
game doubleheader or we caught 4 games in a row, I'd start to sit on a knee a little bit just to help save my legs. So the knee down wasn't a big issue for me, but the moving the ball I just didn't think made any sense. But just the more that I checked out, all the data and analytics, and spoke, with the right people and listened to the right talks, it just made sense. So.
How did you see it progress with the kids when you like made that move? Like what was like, it's like it's one thing to be like, okay, and a lot of guys are this way where it's like, oh, in the big leaguers do it, but like is that like when was it like, okay, now I'm seeing it actually work with the younger guys and going to start implementing it?
So the way I work at my camps is I always I don't try and force the kids to do anything. I'll talk to them. I'll explain and demonstrate what I think is the best way to do things, and then tell them and give them several options, and then say, okay, now you need to figure out what works best for you. For example, some of these kids, I have 9, 10, 11-year-olds at my camps. They're not strong enough to put their big heavy mitt on the ground and catch a misfire that's face high. It's going to hit them in the face or fly right by and hit
Mm-hmm.
the umpire or go to the backstop. So I tell them, you need to test this stuff out during practice, during bullpens, target, relax. Some of you are going to go to the ground and be just fine. And some of you are going to need to just relax a little bit so you can get all the misfires that you're going to get at your age. Um, Crazy thing is though, there's, believe it or not, some 9 and 10-year-olds that are amazing. We'll set up the hack and feed some pitches, not like super fast velocity, but a decent velo for them. And they're amazing with it. They're quick, and they're, efficient with their move, and get, great with the presentation. But then I'll have a, 15, 16-year old that's a new concept for them, and they're not good at it at all. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I guess the way that I put it at camp is, for most of you, you need to just focus on making the catch. Right. And then if the timing works out and the pitch location is where you're expecting it and your mitt's in the right spot, and you can move it to increase the probability of getting that strike call, then go for it. Otherwise, do your best to keep strikes and just catch that ball, stop it from flying by you, and smoking the umpire or something to that effect.
Yeah, and I think like, we do a ton of pick work, just throwing guys short hops or even, the older guys get them on the machine and fire some picks at them. And it's like one of those like super eye opening things for me when we start doing that. Cause it's like, obviously like infielders aren't, trying to like, stick the ground ball. It's like they're moving it and they're, giving themselves some, ability to adjust through it. And so when you start to see the guys do picks and it's like pop, 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 they're just like pocketing everything. You're like, well, obviously it makes sense. We're just giving ourselves more margin for error to just catch the ball.
Sure. No, absolutely. It's well, again, I'll just say that it's amazing because, and you battle this probably on social media too. We commented just the other day on one of your
Yeah.
posts, the haters are going to hate and don't believe it. You might have noticed.
Facebook's incredible. Are you do you post stuff on Facebook?
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's the amount of. It's funny because it's almost always the umpires that come on there and say, "If you think this is going to fool me, you're kidding yourself. This is garbage. Why would you teach kids to do this?" I
Yeah,
always,
these guys that are entrusted to officiate, you know, 12 to 14-year-old baseball games are saying, if that kid does that, I'm not calling it a strike. And it's like, you realize like you just showed us you have zero integrity for the game as a whole, right? Like as an umpire, that's just a terrible thing to say in general.
yeah, no, I used to try and give them an educated, respectful answer, and teach them, and this is why we're doing it, and this is how it works, and then they still come back with some smart ass comment, and just continue to battle me on it. So I've most of the time, if they're being super disrespectful or they swear something on my page, then I'll come in and comment or just delete it. And sometimes I went on a what they call a block party not too long ago and just started just blocking guys. I don't even want to deal with you anymore. You never, And the point was, and I said it too on one of your posts, was there's nothing we can say that's going to change their mind. The hater's going
Mm-mm.
to hate, so I just leave them alone. But again, a majority of the time, it's umpires jumping on there, that are battling. So I don't know, it's
Well, and
comical.
we had, and that's a question, it's like we had Jose Trevino on the show, and like that was one thing I asked him. I said, do the umpires talk to you about you moving their glove? And he's like, no, they don't say anything. They don't say anything about what we're doing. It's like their job is to call the pitch as they see it, and it's our job to try to help them see it the way we want them to see it.
Yeah,
And so it's like, that's the same people that say there's an art to framing, from back in the day, there's an art to framing, are saying like, oh, that's incorrect. It's like, well, it doesn't, we're all trying to do it a certain way. We do what feels best. But no, I think Facebook's incredible because, it's a older demographic as it is. Right. And
yeah,
it's like, sometimes I don't go on Facebook very much, because my videos just link from Instagram. But I'll go on my Instagram video, and then on the top it'll say, you have 375 comments on Facebook or something. And I'll be like, three. I mean, I get like quadruple, 10 times the amount of comments on Facebook by just all these old timers, just legit every single time, like garbage, this is trash, like ball. It's just unbelievable. I crack up. I love it. Because here's the reality, it's not going anywhere.
Right.
Like this is the way it's going to be. It's always going to be like this. There's just so much behind, not just the productivity that we're seeing from catchers that's better, but like, dude, these guys feel better. I mean, like you said it earlier when you were talking about the camps and the length of them. How much easier has it gotten to do blocking now that you've introduced blocking on a knee? Like these kids aren't dying now blocking.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's always the first thing that I list when I talk about the benefits of knee down is comfort and energy conservation. It's a lot easier to just chill out on a knee than it is to hold yourself up in a squatted position, and that's for 95% of the population. Some guys, again, we have the Austin Barnes and the Higgy with not the Yankees anymore, Padres, that tend to stay on their feet the whole game. But majority, and even Veritek said he was at KetcherCon last year, and he has that quote out there, was like, man, I wish knee down was a thing when I was playing, because I definitely would have used it. It's so much
For
easier.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of guys that have come on here have said the same thing. And like, you know, just talking about how that might have lengthened their career, or their, the reality of like, once this all started, it started because receiving numbers became a thing. And they're like, man, like if my receiving numbers were a little better, like I might have had a chance. But, you kind of get into the game late, and all these younger guys are coming up doing this immediately. And so give me the idea of like when you were kind of that progress. I'm more interested in the moving of the ball thing, because I think you and I are similar on that timeline where like the minute like I started doing this, um, Tony Arnich was my coach in college, and he always talked about being below the ball. We wanted to be below the ball. But it wasn't really talking much about the movement of the ball. We did a lot more of like the turn, like flatten the glove out on everything. So tell me a little bit about the progression of that into the moving of the ball with the younger guys.
So again, that's one of the more challenging things to teach. Some of them get it right away, and some of them really struggle with it. They're fine moving it, but they're terrible at hitting the brakes, and so they bounce all over the place. It's hard for them to control. They just don't have the strength. Which actually I always teach is strength is a difference maker. I don't care if you're 9. There's youth fitness classes you need to get into there. And you might have gone through the same thing. So when I first, again, that night sitting there with Cienko at KetcherCon in the hotel and watching all these videos just blew my mind. And I was, like I said, I was hesitant. So I would still tell the kids, all right, so a little movement is good. So if it's 1 or 2 balls out of the zone, move it 1 to 2 balls up and get it to the edge. You don't have to rip it to the middle. And then, as you are aware of, over the, I don't know how many years, the best receivers are all taking it to their like chest and chin area. They'll catch it at the bottom of the zone and rip it all the way up to their chest and chin. So, and I think Goodrow says it, the catchers that move the ball the most get the most strikes, or something like that. I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but I went from stick it to, okay, let's move it a little bit, to go ahead and let it fly, guys. Just get it to your chest and chin every time. Give the umpire a consistent look. And it's amazing how many, again, extra strikes these kids are getting. When they get it, it's fun to watch. Some of them, again, struggle, and I talk to them about the strength and the timing, and those are the ones I say just focus on catching it. You'll get the hang of it. When they get it, I have some, again, 10, 11, 12-year-olds that are, I'm like, if big league umpires are giving pitches to catchers for doing this, imagine how many extra pitches, extra strikes you can get doing it with your level of umpires. It's pretty amazing.
Well, again, it's like the movement piece of like the umpires seeing movement. Again, I'm broken record talking on this, but it's like, they have to watch the ball. It's like, so we're seeing all the movement from, behind the pitcher on TV, and we see the catcher load the glove and then rip through, but umpires really only seeing, post catch movement. So even when my guys come in and say, yeah, I had an umpire tell me that I was moving the ball too much. And I'm like, well, that actually probably means your timing wasn't great, and you were making quite a few 2-piece moves, where you got beat, you catch it and pull it instead of that good fluid, 1-piece move. And so it's actually a great adjustment for us when umpires give that feedback, because the reality is that probably means we're not doing it right, because we really are. Everybody says we're moving the ball. Obviously, like, guys are moving the ball a lot, especially when it's like on the edges. But the reality is a lot of the movement and a majority of the movement is happening prior to contact. And so we think there's way more movement than there actually is. But it's just, again, I say this so many times. Do we want to fool the umpire? 100%. Like, that's 100% our job, right? But the reality is that it's not always easy to get strikes. And especially, my point at the youth level is that the best pitchers at the youth level have control, but don't have command. So you're still not, you don't have 12-year-olds that just dot, the outside corner. Like, they are strike throwers, but they don't command where it's going, right? So it's
Sure.
like, we got to be able to get the pitches in the zone. If I'm set up middle, can I get, everything on the white? And if I'm set up middle, I might not even expect more, but it's like, then I set up a little bit, you know, outside, and it's like, get maybe a ball off the plate, but can I still get the one that's, on the white on the inside, and make sure that those strikes are strikes. So even in this, like, we're moving the ball phase, like, keeping strikes is still 100% the key.
100%. And actually, that's you making great points. I tell the kids, if you have a pitcher, and they're rare at the youth level, that can throw it inside and throw it outside and hit some spots, kind of spot it up a little bit, then sure, you might start shifting your setup, shading in certain areas. But majority of your pitchers are going to be really inconsistent. So it's best to just stay in what I call a neutral location. They're going to target middle. They're going to do their loads somewhere near the middle. I don't recommend they go to the ground because there's going to be high misfires. So just stay in a neutral location where you can get to all of them. And as you said, just keep strikes is the main thing. And then every once in a while, your pitcher's going to throw it right near where your mitt is, and then you're able to do that little manipulation and move, and increase the probability of getting that strike call.
So you're seeing guys, and we see it a little bit too, but you're seeing guys when they load all the way to the ground struggle just getting back up to pitches basically like middle top of the zone.
It depends on experience and just their build. The stronger ones, it's always obvious. You work with enough kids, you know this. It's always obvious the kids that are doing some type of resistance training, that are going to, again, youth fitness classes, going to a trainer, and they're doing something to get stronger. It's like way obvious, at least to me in my camps. And I'll recommend to the kids, hey, you've got some technique. I can see it's in there, but when the ball hits your mitt, you just can't control it. So you need to get stronger. And we actually incorporate a whole bunch of different strength exercises, youth appropriate strength exercises into my camps as well. Just how to strengthen hand wrist and forearm strength, shoulder strength and stability, core strength and stability to help them stabilize. But it's again, it's 100% obvious the ones that aren't doing any type of resistance training, and those are the ones that struggle. And I'll just flat out tell them, you're not at a point where it's probably not best for you to put your mitt on the ground, because again, those, like I said earlier, those high misfires is going to be really hard to get to, and some of them will even be at the top of the strike zone, and you're going to lose out on the strike because you're just not getting there in time. You're just all this extra swiping movement to try and catch it. So get stronger, focus on the catch. Don't get too extreme with your moves and your shading or anything.
A piece I'll add to it, which is, over the last, 3-4 years, as we've done more of the moving of the ball, is the weight of your glove is extremely important. So I tell, I get all the kids like, hey, what glove should we get? Whatever. And I'm like, the younger you are, the lighter it should be. So it was like, I remember a while back, it would be like, I would even tell like the, 8, 9, 10 year olds, like, go buy the training mitts, like Valley had a really good training mitt that was light, and All Star had a great training mitt that was light. Like, just learn to catch a pocket, but you can't just go buy a glove that's got heavy leather, and expect to be able to use it. So to me, it's like, even when I get these kids and they start to get like 7th, 8th grade, and they're like, oh, I think I'm going to get the heart of the hide, or, and I'm like, and obviously All Star is a partner of ours, so I'm a big fan. But like, I'm literally sold on their gloves now because of the weight of them. Like, you're able to just take they're 32, they're 33 and a half, 35. They all similarly weigh the same. And when they start to get to an age now where it's like, okay, I'm a little bit stronger, it's like, it doesn't mean that you need a heavy, like super heavy leather glove. It's like, just because you're older, like doesn't mean you should swing a heavier bat and make it more difficult for yourself. Like you still want bat speed, right? So I tell all the parents out there, like PSA to everybody listening, like the lighter the better on the glove, because the quicker you can move that thing, obviously the later we can wait, like everything becomes much easier.
Yeah, 100%. And it's one of the things I'm sure you run into as well is, and the parents obviously mean well, but the kids will soak the mitt with like glove oil and conditioner and do so many rounds of it that it's just saturated and the thing weighs, it literally feels like an anvil. I've had a couple kids where I'm like, you're not able to move properly because your mitt weighs like 5 pounds, which is an exaggeration, but you get my point. Like they just soak it. So, I'm constantly actually having to talk about mitts as well, and how to work them in, and then how to keep it light, like you say, and not saturate it like some of them do.
How would you give someone advice on working in a glove? This is something to me that's like interesting, because everybody's got like different ways of talking about it.
So I was, and you might have been the same. I was the guy who just use it. I actually never used glove
Oh,
conditioner.
natural, baby.
Yeah, yeah, just use the thing, and a lot of just my fist too. I wouldn't grab a bat, or I didn't have a mitt mallet or whatever they call them, glove mallet. It was just my hand, but just using it as often as possible. I catch as many bullpens as possible. So I just old school, just use it, and then just over the years, and obviously becoming the catching guy, it's a common question. So I reached out to Stan with All Star, and I was like, hey, what's your best recommendation on breaking in your all's mitts? And come to find out, one of the best ways is to actually, you get a towel, a hand towel, get it wet, not like dripping wet. So you get it wet and kind of wring it out just a little bit, and then just push it into the pocket and get some moisture in it, and then catch. So the moisture in the leather will help expand the pocket, get some moisture, and get some wet on, water on the hinges, so it closes easier. But just water, and then once it dries out, then add just a light coat of glove conditioner in there to keep the moisture in the leather, so it doesn't dry out and crack from getting the water on it. But I know guys like, I don't know if you ever talked to Goodrow about it, but he'll just dunk it in a bucket and just
Mm,
saturate the entire thing and then
breaks my
pull it out.
heart.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh man, I can't buy into that. He told me it works great. It works great. I was like, I don't know. I feel like if I recommend that to a kid and they dunk it and leave it in there overnight and pull it out and it's just deteriorating or something, I think it's a bit much. So just
Well, I
water
just
in the
think guys feel like the whole glove needs to be broken in. Like it's like this all needs to be malleable. It's like no, like it literally just needs to be here. Like, and they're like, yeah, but like they'll catch with my glove and they're like, this is like not even broken in. I'm like, no, dude, this thing's ready to rock. Like
yeah,
just because it's stiff like here and it's stiff here doesn't change the fact that the pocket's ready to go. And so it's like they're like sitting there like, this, and like you see the guy on Instagram, he's like banging up the glove and stuff. And it's like, reality is like I tell them, how do I break it in? Catch with it how you catch, so that it breaks into you. If you're just messing around with it and you're like bending it around, it's like that's not how you catch the ball. I mean, I remember like my dad used to freaking get pissed at me all the time. I'd just be sitting there on the couch with a ball, in my glove, and he'd just have to keep hearing the pop, pop, pop. And he'd be like, get the hell out in the backyard. But I mean, it's like that's just it. Like it just has to break into you. Um, this is really high quality leather we're using at this point for these gloves too, right? So it's like they don't need to be babied, or like, it's like if you see some cracking in the glove, obviously you can throw some conditioner, lotion, or something on it. But it's just to me like amazing like I'm gonna do the bake it, I'm gonna water it, I'm like, oh God, it's just like it actually like a little piece of my soul dies a little bit when I hear it.
yeah. Did you ever do the shaving gel? That was a thing. I used to put some shaving gel in it because it's got lanolin in it, which is skin softener, it's cow skin. So I used to do some shaving gel in the pocket as well instead of water. Is what I used to do back in the day.
I literally just use lotion, like
Yeah.
body lotion. Like that was like my catching coach in high school. I had a great catching coach in high school, John Perchio. Shout out, he was the man. But like he just was like, just put some lotion where it looks like it's cracking a little bit, and take care of it that way. But no, it's amazing the different ways, and again, a kind of a take on the generation is like it's going to take a while, and that's okay. Like they buy a glove and they want to catch it. Like, I got a tournament in 3 weeks. I need this thing ready. I'm like, it's not going to be like,
Yeah,
and like you shouldn't try to force it. And I think that's the other piece of just getting guys to understand, like, get a glove. If you're doing, let's say, at their age, they don't need a glove every year, but let's say, every 2 years you get a glove. Get a glove every June. Use it all summer, bullpens, fall and bullpens. You'll have it ready for spring. You got it for a year, the whole deal. But these guys literally like ride them till they die. And then it's like they're looking. I have gloves that I keep here as like, just gloves for guys to borrow, because they get to that point where like, I just bought a new glove, but this one's just torn up, and I'll fix it as best I can. But I'm like, here, you just take this glove this weekend, because dude, you got zero chance with this one, and that one ain't gonna be ready for another 3-4 months. So let's take our time.
the Wilsons, the A2Ks take forever. Those things are hard as a rock. Seems like
Those and I don't know if you've come across any of those 44s.
same type of leather.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
bricks, dude. I mean,
yeah,
it's crazy. Like, I've had some kids, like, we're talking like a year to get that thing to even close. It's nuts. And I know that is an indication that it's good leather. It's just again, the better the leather, the obviously heavier it's going to be. That's just the way it
right,
is. So like, and again, I'm All Stars, just to me has found this really good combo of good leather that doesn't overweigh it too much.
for sure, for sure.
So we talked about moving the ball. We talked about the one knee stance, and like you said, we in our day we used one knee down, but it just was never with runners on base, and never thinking that way. Talk about that evolution. And again, I know like we talk about this evolution a lot with guys on here. I think it's cool to hear your perspective from the youth level, right? Like, we know what happens in the big leagues and these guys and how they figured it'd be better because they got metrics that tell them, oh, well, I was receiving better when I did it, and this and that.
Yeah.
Talk about the benefits and kind of that transition with the youth guys.
With runners on, getting on a knee with runners on, you're saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So again, I'll explain to the kids. Here's why we get on a knee down. Here's how to do it, and then point out some of you are probably not going to want to be on a knee right away. Like, you're just learning this concept. It's going to take you some time to. I mean, sometimes basically you're doing a single leg squat from all the way from the ground to get up, to make a throw or get up and go get a bunt or back up or catch a pop or whatever. So I was explaining, honestly, I'll say even probably most of you need some reps, need some time. I've actually talked to Colin Wilbur about this because he used to do at the high school level, and his guys were amazing at it. He sent me a video one time of just a highlight reel of crazy blocks, even huge, misses, lateral blocks, and all his guys were on a knee. But he pointed out that, like you have them for a long period of time. I have them for a weekend. So to try and say, all right, here's why they're doing it. Here's how to do it. Now go do it. They're going to go back to their team and get on a knee and miss a block. And their coaches be like, who taught you to do that? Oh, the catching guy.
yeah.
So I don't want to get that reputation. I tell them, work on it during bullpens, work on it in scrimmage games, explain to your coach how I explained it to you, why you're going to do it. And believe it or not, there are a lot of catchers that are getting better at both blocking and throwing from knee down setups. It's helping them all the way around, making them more efficient, better direction with their throwdowns, and they're actually, doing very well with their blocks as well. So, so again, I guess to answer your question, at the youth level, I explain why it's being done. Here's how to do it. Here's the adjustments you need to make when there's runners on. The track start with that foot that's down. Make sure that the toes are dug in, so you have some cleats there, so that leg can help you push when needed. That foot position. I'm not a big fan. I tell the kids, here's why guys are kicking out into that modified kickstand. Like a huge majority of them are now. But what I'll usually do is we do a whole section of the camp is on stances and setups. I'll have the kids that kick out, and I'll say, okay, bunt. Get up and get a bunt. And they're like, oh, and they have to retract the foot back in, put their hands down before they get up. I go, he's safe, right? So the kick out is not for everybody at the youth level, especially. It takes a lot of strength and mobility and athleticism to be able to do the stuff that they see the big leaguers doing. So, and I'll explain it to them. When another part of our camps is we do video breakdowns. I'll put them in a birthday room, or if there's a TV out in the training area, we put up some videos of JT Romuto and some of these guys doing amazing blocks and recover and retrieve and throw outs from a full kickstand. And I explained how JT's a unicorn. He's a mythical character. The athleticism that guy has is off the charts. Not all of you, well, none of you are JT Romuto yet. Some of you may end up being at that point. And when you're at that point, then you can start to kick out, full kickstand, 1-run game, bottom of the ninth with a runner at third. Until then, for most of you, you'll probably be best, keeping the foot in closer, or some of you might even be best staying on your feet until you get some more reps and experience on a knee. Because you're just going to lock yourself in place for some of these kids that just don't have the strength and athleticism yet. So that's how I explain my camps for the youth.
The kickstand is it's one of those things that like it's very simple in how we talk about it too. Is like no matter what stance you're in, you have to be centered. Like we have to be centered in our body. Like that's from centuries of catching, of like on 2 feet, one knee down, however it's evolved, right? So the reality is like if a guy goes, hey, I'm kind of interested in like doing a kickstand, it's like, okay, go ahead and do it. And if they don't naturally center their body there, it's not for them yet. It's something that it's like we can start to work towards this, but the minute that leg kicks out and all their weight shifts back to the other side and we're stuck on that knee, number one, like we want to receive to the middle, we don't have that same control, but then move and just block, throw, whatever it may be, we're just not athletic enough to do it. And so I tell guys, I don't have any rules on stances. You can do whatever stance you want. It's got to work. And the only thing I care about is, are you square and are you centered? Like, just that's the only 2 things we care about.
I say it almost the same way. I tell the kids, for the most part, you can do whatever you want to do. It just has to be comfortable for you, balanced, and athletic. Now, the key is some of you, what's comfortable for you isn't balance and athletics. You have to make some adjustments, and they'll see JT kick out or whatever, and they'll kick out. And just like you said, they'll be sitting on the leg that's down. I'm like, all right, so that's comfortable? Yeah. All right, you have great mobility and flexibility. That's awesome. I go, do you feel balanced? And
push them over.
Oh, yeah. And they're like, oh, wait. Oh, now you're balanced. And then, all right, you're kicked out. What if the guy bunts? Well, I wouldn't do this if there was a fast run, batter up. I'm like, well, big guys get fooled on changeups and hit little, swinging bunts. You got to be ready for those too. So the way I put it is you put yourself in the best position to get a strike call while still being able to perform any other responsibilities that happen. If you're not balanced and athletic, you're not going to be able to perform those other responsibilities. So be comfortable. It's important that you're comfortable back there, but you have to be balanced and athletic. So we say that we're on the same page as far as that goes.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, there's a massive piece of it just being connected to the ground, right? I mean, we're talking about youth athletes who don't have a ton of stability, and, being connected to the ground is big. And I think there has to be some sort of like, I'm kind of preaching to youth coaches here for like some assistance in understanding this, but it's like, there has to be some sort of an understanding of like, what are your expectations of a 12-year-old catcher? Because the reality is like, there's nothing natural about blocking. Okay, there's literally nobody that just rolled out, started playing baseball and was like, yep, go ahead. I'm just going to sit here. You throw that thing at me and I'll be cool with it, right? I mean, that's just not a natural thing.
Yeah.
So like if the expectation now turns to, let's make sure we keep strikes as best we can. Let's not let runners move up. And I think that terminology to me needs to be more mainstream, because like every kid comes in, I go, what's the goal to blocking? They're like, keep the ball in front of me. And I'm like, no, like, don't let it get by me. I'm like, no, like those things can still be done and you not actually accomplish the goal, which is don't let them move up, 60 or 90 feet. Right. So I think if you're thinking about it in that broader spectrum of like, don't let them move up, is like, okay, like let's be okay with them using their glove to pick some balls. Maybe they're like paddle block some balls with their glove, with the expectation of knowing they're not going to get them all. They might miss some picks, but because they missed a pick doesn't mean they were 100% going to block this ball if they were on 2 feet or attempted to go block it in that way. So how do you talk kind of that, like just broad spectrum of expectation, not just blocking, but in general, like kind of like, I guess not even expectation of them, but how do you communicate with them on dealing with the expectation of their coaches and peers? Because that just always seems to be too much for me.
Yeah. And you said it perfectly too. Like I always say to the kids on the blocking point, you know, you probably get this question a lot too. What's a successful block? What's a definition of a successful block? Did the runner advance? If the runner didn't advance, that was a successful block. We don't care how it looks. And the way I talk about it at camp, there's actually a video I show that is just textbook. Like the guy gets to, he's on his feet, he's in a traditional secondary, but he gets to a great block, mitts down, posture's good, chin's tucked, it hits him in the belly button, ends up right below him. And I'll say, so this block is in the position he's got into is a rarity, right? The number of times you're going to be in textbook blocking position are slim to none. Like, and some of you may have experienced it before. You probably did too, but as a player well, it sounds like you had some. I meant to say this earlier. You had some great coaches that were catchers. Like you were so lucky. I didn't get any. Literally didn't get any coaching and catching. I was just playing off my athleticism until I got to pro ball, and then I finally started getting some guys give me some instruction. Before then, it was just play, which is wild. But coaches who weren't catchers, you might maybe a cleat sticks. You kind of lost focus for a second, and the pitcher surprised you with the ball in the dirt. So you're kind of one knee down, one knee up, awkward position. The ball hits you in the belly and ends up right in front of you. Great block, runner didn't advance. You're throwing it back to the pitcher. You look over to coach, and he's like, let's go, quit being lazy. You need to be on two knees there. You're like, coach, the ball's right there.
Yeah.
It's still a great block, right? So I explained that to the kids at camp that you're going to have coaches that are going to holler at you if you don't end up on two knees. They're going to holler at you if you try and start on one knee. But as long as you keep the runner from advancing, that's a successful block. And I always tell them, respectfully talk to your coaches about the fact that, this is how it looks for me sometimes. Like Yachty used to do this all the time. He would, on lateral blocks, if he's blocking to his mitt side, his left knee would be down, his right leg would be sticking out like a kickstand. If it was to his arm side, his right knee would go down, his left leg. He almost never ended up on two knees unless it was right in front of him. So I guess, again, back to your point in question is I tell the kids, we don't care how it looks, just get the job done.
You made a good point. You said something to this earlier I took a note on I wanted to bring back up, is explaining to the coaches what you're doing. And so there's a lot of times that the kids will come back and be like, oh, my coach told me I can't do da, 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 da. And I'm like, well, did you talk to him about it? Like, no, like, they just kind of like, the kids are like, they have this like pissed off kind of, like, he doesn't know, like, I come here and like, work with you and like, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but like every time we're in here, I tell you the importance of you understanding the why of everything that we do. And the biggest reason is so that A, you know it and you're your best coach. And then B is that like you do get in that situation, your coach goes like, I don't want you to catch you on a knee. And like, you can just say, hey, coach, like, respectfully, can we just have a conversation about this? I want to just tell you what I'm doing and what I think is helping my game. And I think that's like a big piece of this. Like, if you understand it, you can speak well on it. A coach who doesn't have quite as much knowledge on the position I'd say might because there's still a lot of dick coaches out there, but they might have a little bit more of sympathy of like, at least he's studying, preparing, understanding, as opposed to just like, it's not like, oh, you just saw, Real Muto do it on TV, so you're doing it, and trying to copy him. It's like, no, like I'm actually like seeing what works and what doesn't in my game.
Yeah, the way I tell it to the kids is, if you get on a knee, because that's what you're seeing the big leaguers do, and you learned it at my camp, and you miss 6 or 7 out of 10 blocks, knee down's not for you. You got to do something different to have more success. Your coach will obviously be all over you, but if you're blocking 8 or 9 out of 10, knocking down, stopping 8 or 9 out of 10 balls in the dirt from a knee, then you're obviously a knee down candidate. But until you get that consistent, you probably shouldn't be on a knee because if you don't do it coach's way, you're going to end up on the bench or even worse off the team. So if you have your coach that's just getting on you, well, how is your performance? If you're getting the job done, he shouldn't be getting on you about being on a knee. If you're doing the job and that's the best opportunity for you to help your pitcher get more strikes and you're still able to block and move and get up and throw runners out, more power to you. Keep doing it. But if you're missing, if you're not able to get up from that knee and make a consistent throw down there, do something different. What's giving you the most success is the way I put it.
And I like to tell the youth coaches, I'm like, how many times are guys in a 2-foot traditional stance, like 2 feet, butt in the air, runners on base, and they're actually in that position when the ball crosses the plate. You know what I mean? Like that's the other piece where it's like how they're up in this position. They're so uncomfortable that they want out of it so bad that the first sign of any indication of if it's in the air or in the dirt, they're taking it immediately and they're going. And it's just like, isn't the first goal to catch the ball? And it's like if I'm on a knee and I can catch everything, I can reach further to catch stuff. It's like that's gotta be like A1 is we got to catch the ball. And like guys are telling, hey, you got to be on 2 feet. You got to be up in there. It's like, it's just not easy. It's like, coach, you get your fat ass down there and go and, and I'll throw balls at you and let's see how many balls you catch. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah, I
just,
have a whole. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just saying I
no,
have
go
a
ahead.
whole video. It's probably I bet I have like 3 minutes of video that I've gotten. I'm not going to say names, but from other catching coordinators and coaches that I know out there, they'll send me stuff. Yeah, being on 2 feet is an auto block, right? Check this out, and it's just miss after miss after miss, and stabbing at balls and missing, and like getting on 2 feet isn't a guaranteed block. Being on 2 feet is not a guaranteed throw out. There's and you know this too that the I don't know if I want to say the name, but the Fry guys, right? The Jeff Fry,
Yeah.
Shigon Nation, as they
Yeah.
call themselves. Um, the catcher could be 11 for 11 from a knee down, amazing blocks, some of those with runners on third, and then they miss one. And what's the one that they post? The one that they miss and a run scored, and it's this is terrible. Well, why don't you post the video of the other 11 beautiful blocks that they made, even on some extreme misses laterally, and they still got there and knocked it down. Like they cherry pick, and drives me nuts.
No, it's difficult in that whole argument there. You just, again, like you talked about earlier, just never going to win.
Yeah,
But yeah, this is it's a failure based game, right? Like we have all these, hitting guys that'll tell you, hey, it's okay. You fail 7 out of 10 times, you're a 300 hitter. And then all of a sudden we get to catching. And it's like, I mean, coaches are so hard on catchers. And again, like we touch the ball every single pitch. Like there's, the chances of us making more mistakes is just far greater because we're just more involved.
absolutely.
So it's interesting when you get to the youth level, and I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. Um, it's just interesting when these coaches, feel they don't want to invest the time in skill development because that's just not a thing in travel ball. Probably my biggest beef of travel ball is there's no skill development. They think that you go do a practice and we do cuts and relays and first and third defenses, and then everybody gets 10 swings on the field that we made somebody better today. But
Right.
how are we not just like, if you weren't a catcher, like just open up the computer and do a little bit of research. Like there's just too much information at this point now to not, right?
Yeah, I've said that to people on post before. I was like, if you talk to the right people, start attending conventions, whether it's just your state convention, obviously the ABCA and now KetcherCon are probably the two biggest ones. Like, just talk to the right people, do your own research, go to the conventions, and you're going to see, I said that to one guy, man, this was actually probably been like last year sometime. And he came back with, well, these guys can make the data look like however they want. Of course, they're going to make it look beneficial to be on a knee because that's what they want. I'm like, you really think they're going to have their catchers on a knee and it's not the right option? Like,
Yeah,
come on,
I know.
it's a gazillion-dollar industry. They invest probably millions of dollars into the analytics department, and they're not going to fudge the numbers. They're going to show you exactly what's happening, and knee down is been more beneficial for almost all of them.
So let's dive into some throwing stuff.
Okay.
Talk about some common mistakes in youth catchers you see with throwing and some adjustments you make with that.
Um, the two most common that I see, and I know you see this a lot too, are and this sometimes comes from the coaches that maybe not don't truly understand, is taking a ginormous step. You have to gain ground. You have to step towards your target. Get your energy going toward your target. I always say, yes, of course, there's some truth to that. You do want to get your energy going towards your target, your body weight energy, however you want to say it. But the longer the step you take, the longer the ball's in your hand. So we're constantly talking to the kids about get your foot in the ground, get your foot in the ground, get your foot in the ground. We'll do the drills, and they'll still take some of them literally, and I know you've seen this too, will take a 2 to 2.5 foot step, like 24,
Crow hop.
30 inches. Yeah, they like crow hop. And so their release time is, 1.2 seconds. And then they're wondering why they're not throwing anyone out. I'm like, you got to get your foot down. So that's probably one of the most common ones we see around the country. And then also long arm arc. So going down and around, some of them think uh, they need to do that to create arm speed and velocity on their throw, so they get really long with their arm action versus staying short and then using the cores, where obviously the core is the engine. So that's probably the two biggest things that I see is the arm action and the big step. And I'm guessing that's probably same for you, pretty common.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the feet, 100%. And I think it starts with, where they make contact with the ball, right? I mean, they just want to like reach out and go. And so, like, the further out I reach to go catch the ball, that my feet have to go meet that there. They're not going to control this ball back to their body. But it's just understanding the basic principles of movement too, right? And just the idea of like throwing's rotational. Like throwing is off of a firm front side. The farther I'm moving forward, the softer that front side has to get, and the more I'm just going to leak all the way through it. And I just explain it simply in hitting terms is like, if you just had all your energy, just keep moving forward as you trying to hit, like, be pretty difficult, to do that. We're trying to keep direction, but we got to rotate through the throw. And I think that's definitely, there's some of those like, old school terms that are just, they're tough to get rid of, man. I mean, the gain ground one is still just like, it's actually incredible that it's still so prevalent. Like, I got guys that are in high school, their high school coaches telling them like, you got to gain ground, you got to gain ground. And it's like, again, we kind of go back to the conversation with the coaches, and I don't want them to be like too much of like, pricks to their coaches. But I'm also like, sometimes when I say something to you, like maybe say like, hey coach, when you get a chance, could you send me a video of what you're, a guy in the big leagues are doing, what you're talking about, so I can kind of understand it a little bit better. And, like just like a little bit of a jab, but also like, if this is what's good, like show me the guys doing it so I can, get a little better look at it.
Sure.
But the gain ground thing is, man, like it's crazy.
You might remember my post not too long ago, it was probably last month, where I said this is for the gain ground
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
crew out there, and showed someone actually false step, and I can't remember who the catcher was, actually like dropping back with their foot, that false step. And the funny thing was, even watching the video, I still had people comment, well, funny thing is, he is gaining ground. I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go.
Yeah.
Like my understanding is when someone's saying gain ground, it's the step with the right foot. Yes, their posture and all that comes into play, and the forward flexion, all that is creating the energy transfer. But getting the foot down, you don't have to gain ground. Getting the foot down into the ground, and like you say, firming up that front side, just like a swing, basically, is a good analogy. That's what's going to help, incorporate the core and give you that whip and snapping action and more velo. So
How much do you emphasize the transfer in the camps and into that throwing mechanic?
it's pretty high on the list. Most of us catching guys, I think, agree that the arm strength is a difference maker, right? I mean, obviously, the harder you can throw the ball, the quicker it's going to get there. But it's not the end all be all. There's plenty of examples of catchers in the big leagues that are literally throwing high 70s, but still have around a 2 pop time because they get rid of it so quickly. So, and just I'll explain it to you like I do at camp with the kids. I always talk to them about, in my opinion, both for blocking and throwing, mindset is probably top on the list for me, right? You got to get your mind right, adjust your stance accordingly, be ready to block, be ready to throw, get your mind right. All right, and anticipate who's the good runners, who are the plus runners, who do I need to, be ready to throw and adjust my stance accordingly, that kind of stuff. So mindset's number one. Number two, I talk about quick hands, and then we talk about letting the ball come to you, um, exchanging somewhere around the midline of the body, and then I talk a lot about arm shape and arm path, taking a direct line up the throwing position and keeping the ball above and inside the elbow. So it's near the top of my list as far as the exchange is super important. Get rid of it quickly, put it somewhere near the bag. You'll have a ton of success throwing runners out.
Yeah, I mean, if the ball's not in your hand, your feet's not going to hit the ground. And I think
Sure.
that's another piece of like the long steps is like, our lower body inherently knows when we're not ready to throw. Like, my left foot knows, like, oh, the ball's not on top and ready to go. So like it just kind of keeps lunging and lunging and lunging and lunging until like, okay, there it is. And then by that time we're so far forward that we can't catch up.
Yeah, I like that. I've never put it that way. I like that though. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think the hands unlock the feet. I actually, probably sound crazy. I don't ever talk about footwork.
Oh, just let it athleticism kick in and take
Yeah,
over. And, yeah.
because to me, like if they can get their hands on time, like wherever their feet are, is what's natural. Now, like obviously, we got to talk about alignment and stuff like that when we get to that. And if we're not connected to the ground, and we do some drills more to like feel things than talk about it. But yeah, I think footwork's like the most overworked, overused thing in catching because it's just like I can have the greatest feet in the world. It's like basically saying like, hey, we really got to emphasize your stride, but like never teaching a kid to get their hands back when they're hitting, right?
Yeah, no, we break it down. Obviously, at camp, we have stations dedicated to just working on quick hands and proper exchange. And then we'll do, I used to try and do jump rope at camp and trying to teach kids that have never jump rope how to jump rope. It just took too long. So I started incorporate agility ladder, which I know there's a whole bunch of debate out there of haters of the agility ladder. But in my opinion, and I explain it to the kids this way too, there's a huge neuromuscular coordination component to agility ladder. Neuro is the brain and nerves running through the body. Muscular is your muscles. Neuromuscular coordination is your brain telling your feet to do something, and they do it in a quick and coordinated fashion. So we incorporate agility ladder into almost every camp. But to your point on the footwork, we talk about it. I mean, it's third on my list. I talk about mindset, quick hands, and then quick feet. And the main point that I make as far as the footwork goes is just use your feet to clear or maintain some space away from the batter. Right. So if there's a lefty up, especially if they're crowding, I always use Anthony Rizzo as an example. He stands right on the chalk. If you step straight, you're going to hit your hand on his side of his head. Like you need to clear some space. So we'll do a little bit of a replace step. But if there's a righty up, you don't want to replace. You're going to end up behind the batter. So you do more of like a tap step or a false step or just a slight jab step. But that's the main point I try and get across to the kids is, you know, use your feet to create some space from the batter so you have a clear throwing lane.
Just like Jerry says, just be a shortstop with gear on back there.
Yeah, I
Just
stole that line and use it all the time.
yeah. I mean, it's an amazing thing. Just let kids be natural athletes. I think a lot of the coaching that we do at the youth level is reversing coaching that they've gotten. Like throwing, especially, is just something that we're like, I get a kid at 13, 14 years old, and it's like, okay, I gotta literally let's like reverse this whole deal because I think we all have, I can't say, but there's a part of me that believes everybody can naturally throw in some way, shape, or form, and we're basically coached out of it at some point in time.
Sure.
So it's just the idea of like they got to reverse this a little bit, which gets difficult, but it's like, hey, let's just put them in positions to be athletic, like get rid of it as fast as you can. Like, hey, we're going to do 1 foot throws. We're going to, move to our right and throw. Like we used to do a bunch of quarterback drills. And at the time for me, it was more about like, how do they coordinate their timing with their feet? Like, okay, let's do a 3-step drop. Boom, boom, boom. Are they on time and throwing and then having them roll out and stuff? And now I look back at that. I'm like, dude, those are, I mean, it's still to this day, I'm like, those are some of the best stuff we did because we just had them moving athletically to throw.
Here's a funny story. So I did lessons for like 25 years, right? And I got into doing my camps, and I basically stopped doing lessons. Every once in a while, I'm mixing some one-on-one with somebody, but it's all group stuff now. But back when I was doing lessons, one of the things, and it didn't back then, maybe just in my early stages of coaching, I didn't really think about the benefits of it. And it's going to sound really goofy, but have you ever had the kids um, play catch, whether they're playing catch with each other or just throwing into a net? But Tom, I want you to jump up in the air, catch the throw, and get rid of it before you land. I don't know if you've ever done that or seen that. I used to do it all the time just because the kids got a kick out of it. And I was trying to work on, be quick. But then as I got more experience and started learning, I was like, they're learning how to organize their movements and body. And then they put their feet on the ground and they do that same thing they did when they were in the air. And it just speeds up the whole process.
And yeah, we do jump throws all the time. We do them with plyo balls. We do them in the cage. I've never done them with the transfer though. That's exciting. Actually, I'm going to add that in because we just have them like have the ball and then they jump and throw. The best part is that's where you realize like rotational properties there, right? Is
Sure.
like that's how they figure out how to rotate their body. They're like, okay, in order to do this, I don't have any connection to the ground. Like my left hip is going to go back when my right shoulder goes back, and I'm going to stretch it as far as I can, and then I'm going to snap it back, and I'm creating the tension, that like rubber band effect, and then I'm snapping it back, and I'm going, and it's like amazing because these guys actually for the first time in their lives, see life on the ball. Like they see the ball jump out of their hands for the first time, right? Like it's not like a velocity or like whatever, but it's like for the first time they go like, whoa, that was like that ball like spun out of my hand, like we would say with pitchers, like it had life. Like it really jumped because their body did self-organize in the right way that everything was delivered. And again, it goes back to, there's a great story Tony told on one of our YouTube videos, 4 or 5 years ago, but he was talking about like his 7-year-old son, and he said, "Hey, I want you to throw this ball over the house." They're up in Tahoe or something, and he's like, "I watched my kid like load to the ground, like jump, like literally like all the way to the toes jump, and he releases this ball like right at the top of the jump, and throws it as far as he can, right?" And he's like, if I'd have said to him, "Hey, you want to know how to throw this ball over the house? I want you to load and jump and get all the way. And then right at the top, I want you," he's like, he'd had no chance. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like, he just let his body do it and self organize and like put it all together. And that's where like we just don't give even 7-year-olds in this case like enough credit for like how naturally we can do things. We've just got to be more external about cues on, when they're younger, like throw it to there, not how do I throw it to there? It's like, just throw it to there. Let's figure out how to throw it to there. And let's see it happen. And then like, we'll start to make adjustments as need be. But like, we just got to let them, they got to like feel it and figure it out on their own as much as they can before we adjust.
Yep. What has given them the most success? I was actually, I don't know if you had this thought when Patrick Bailey came up and he was doing the sidearm throws to second. Because I've always told the kids, it doesn't have to be over the top. Most are 3/4. Like you do you. That's one of the things I say all the time. Like I'll say it 72 times during camp. Well, where should this be? I'm like, I don't know. You do you. What works best for you? If you're doing one way and it's not working, you got to do something different. Make some adjustments. Figure out. But if you want to throw from the side like Patrick Bailey, that's fine. If you want to go over the top, can't really think of an over top guy right now. But the three
There's
quarters is
none.
yeah, they're all 3/4. Perfect. But yeah, you do you and figure out what works best for you, and it doesn't have to be one set way. So, and I think you probably do this as well. I try and give them all the different options and show them video of all the different things they can do, and then you do you. Figure out what works best for you.
Well, and the reality is like, we go back to throwing being rotational. Like the elbow like has to be in line with the shoulders for our body to rotate. So like an over the top guy is actually just, the guys that'll tilt a little more this way, but their elbow's still on line with their shoulder, right? And so getting them to understand like we're not like reach it, dude. Like I have so many guys and like I'm trying to work with them and they go, yeah, like I'm not gonna throw it in, my shoulders a little tight. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. Like you're literally like reaching as high as you like, look at the space between your head and your shoulder as you're trying to throw, like so again, without like trying to like tell them what to do, I'm just doing a ton more drills with them throwing sidearm. I'll do drills where I'll say a time, it'll be like, okay, 3, 2, 1. And I'll be like, as I'm throwing the ball, 2 o'clock, boom. And they try to feel that. 3 o'clock, boom. And they try to feel that. And it's just like, just getting to feel it. And they start to realize, I don't have to tell them, like, oh, I think two looked pretty good. You know what I mean? But they start to
Yeah,
go, oh, wow, that was interesting. Like, and then the ball's out of their hands quicker because they're able to rotate faster. And then when they do that, they start to see like, man, I'm throwing it really accurately today. Well, yeah, you're rotating. There's space in front of your face to release the ball consistently instead of like pull, and like get myself in the way of that release point.
sure. I love it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny. Like I think we've kind of discussed it today, but if I go back to who I was 10 years ago when I started the Catching Academy, and now it's I mean it's so different. And I think that's the biggest key for students to be, lifelong learners, but like more importantly for us as coaches to just continue to learn and evolve.
100%. Yep. And like I was telling you earlier, I got literally no formal coaching on catching until I got to professional baseball. It was all I was just I don't know. Lucky enough to be athletic enough to just get the job done. I just kind of figured it out on my own kind of thing. And I think that's why it's kind of carried over into my coaching style as well. Like, again, I try and give them some guidance, but just use your athleticism. Just figure it out. What's going to work best for you? It's different for everybody. I used to throw almost Patrick Bailey style, but I had so much tail on my throws. Like I had to make an adjustment, start getting my fingers on top more to create more backspin. I was still throwing guys out back in high school, but then as I got older, runners got faster and all this different things, like the tail on the ball was not cutting it. So I had to make an adjustment, but figure out what works best for you. I sound like a skipping record.
No, but again, like that, it is a piece of it. Like, don't overthink it, like just let's let yourself do it and go. So appreciate you being on, dude. This has been a blast. If you've listened to the show before, you know that our last segment is called Baseball Bites. It's presented by Black Bear Diner, and we like to get everybody's favorite place to eat along their baseball journey. So you obviously college, you played professionally. Now you've been all over the freaking world, doing these catching camps. So what's the first place that sticks out in your mind, a place to eat somewhere along the journey?
Oh my goodness. It's funny that you bring up Black Bear. That's one of my favorite go-tos for breakfast, especially.
Sweet cream pancakes, dude.
Yeah. You know what? I used to crush the pancakes all the time. And as I've gotten older, I guess it's kind of an old man issue. I've had some gut issues, so I can no longer crush the pancakes. They're so good. I haven't been able to have one in a long time. That's a whole other topic. You know what? I actually really love getting somewhere where there's fresh seafood. So, when I make my way back east, particularly northeast, anywhere that has good crab cakes. When I go down toward the south, getting like a jambalaya type thing.
Give me one. You got to have one place. Give me one place sticks out from anywhere. Hometown, something.
Well, my favorite all-time place, and this is back to my college playing days, was Firestone Grill in San Luis Obispo.
There you go, baby.
Do you know about Firestone?
Hell yeah, 805s.
Yeah. So tri-tip, the seasoned fries, and an 805 was like my favorite meal. So Firestone is my all-time favorite place. Anytime I do a SoCal camp, I almost always drive so I can pass through San Luis. I'll stay the night, golf from one of my favorite courses and eat at Firestone 3 times before I
Hunter Ranch?
What's funny is Hunter Ranch was opened when I was leaving, and so I still haven't gone back. Morro Bay was like my home course.
Gotcha.
I lived out there. I lived about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from the course. So I just go over there to the driving range, go play by myself sometimes. I love just the view of the ocean and all that. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the best jambalaya place. What's the man, I'm drawing a blank. I was going to tell you the jambalaya place. I think it's Texas and Louisiana and that. I don't know.
That's all right. Firestone is great because same thing. I got family down in Santa Barbara, and it's like a tradition. Like we, literally. There actually used to be a restaurant we used to stop at in Paso Robles, Black Oak. I don't know if you still the sign is like still there. I don't know if you see it. Like this big old sign says Black Oak Diner or something like that. But when I was a kid, we stopped there. But then it was Firestone. It was always stop in. The tri-tip is just so insane there, and like I love all their beers. They have like some of these like special edition ones we'd pick up on our way back stuff too. So great call on Firestone. I love that. Well, thank you again, man. I truly appreciate your time. It's always great to get perspective on more of the youth stuff. I know a lot of our listeners are youth players, parents, coaches. So getting a little more perspective on that has been really cool, and I appreciate you chopping it up.
Good. Thanks for asking me to come on. I had a blast as always.
If you enjoyed that, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll have a new episode for you every single Tuesday here on our YouTube channel and wherever you listen to podcasts.